Without scriptures, create your own scriptures in 10 realms. The first scenario is to save energy. You don't have much internal energy now, so save some. Second realm, festival burial. You are still a small shrimp in the martial arts world, the kind of person who would bury you randomly on the mound and not even need to be buried. Third realm, non-destiny. You are still very unlucky now, life is not your own, take it easy. The fourth realm is not happy. You are now working hard, so let's put aside your emotions for now. Fifth realm, non-attack. Although you may be a bit strong, don't fight if you can. The sixth realm is still the same. The martial arts world is not about fighting and killing, but about being worldly wise. It is important to acknowledge that others are stronger than oneself. Seventh realm, Shangxian. Although you have 2 brushes, it is easy to provoke stronger ones, so quickly find a thigh to hold on to. The eighth realm of Minggui. To seek knowledge from things, capture a ghost and god to slice and use the power of the ghost and god. The ninth realm of Tianji. I am born with the ability to be useful. Even if I am not useful, I can make a fool of myself. I know how to dig holes, but I don't know how to use it. 10th realm. Do you think I can achieve it? Keywords of the novel. Qin Dynasty Mingyue's Chivalrous Mo1 no pop-up window. Qin Dynasty Mingyue's Chivalrous Mo1 complete collection download. Qin Dynasty Mingyue's Chivalrous Mo1 latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Mohist School and Jinyao, Seeking Recommendation * Seeking Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Mohist School and Jinyao, Seeking Recommendation in Collection, in the 14th year of the reign of King Qi, Linzi. Since the split of the Mohist school has never been as prosperous as before. The Xianglizi lineage went to the state of Qin and received strong support from the state, becoming incredibly powerful. Even Meng Ao, Meng Wu, Meng Tian, and Meng Yi became disciples of the Mohist school. They also engaged in open and covert struggles with another major public loser in mechanism techniques, making the Xianglizi lineage ahead of the other 2 in mechanism techniques. Deng Lingzi is no inferior. He has occupied the Central Plains, followed the path of chivalry, and is known as the final say of Mohist school. There are many great heroes in the world, not necessarily Mo, but Mo must be Xia. The reputation of Mo Xia is also highly respected among the people of various countries in the Central Plains. Only the Xiangfuzi lineage ran to the state of Qi and the An family in Linzi, in order to collide with the most outstanding disciples of the 100 schools at the Jixia Academy and give birth to stronger disciples. Therefore, the Xiangfuzi lineage is also known as Qi Mo or Mo Bian. Unfortunately, the Mo Bian faction had a great idea and established themselves firmly in the Jixia Academy of Qi and the Shihe Academy of Wei. However, during the reign of King Zhao of Yan, the general Lui attacked Qi with determination, and the disciples of the Qi Mo clan, adhering to the Mo school's doctrine of non-aggression, rushed out and almost all of them died in battle. From then on, the Qi Mo lineage completely declined, and King Qi Xiang Tian Fazhang reopened the Jixia Academy, but the presence of the Mo school was no longer seen in the Jixia Academy. Later, after the death of King Xiang of Qi, the queen of the monarch bowed down and took power, signing non-aggression treaties with other countries. Each country was not allowed to invade Qi, and Qi also abolished its military defenses. Therefore, the city defense techniques of the Mohist school were no longer valued by Qi, and Qi Mo also lost the support of the court. In the remote western city of Linzi, a once glorious school palace has collapsed and collapsed. The dilapidated school palace is covered in weeds, and when the wind blows, the wooden houses make a creaking sound of insects gnawing on them. With a snap sound, it is unknown which window has decayed and fallen down again. With the decline of Qi Mo, the Mo debating faction was ultimately unable to hold on to the vast academic palace and the martial arts and scriptures of the Mo family. In the end, they were all sent back to the other two Mo schools, leaving only a portion, taught by their masters and disciples, and not seen in the manuscripts. Teacher. A bamboo tower nestled in the bamboo forest, with the elderly and young sitting opposite each other drinking tea. The old man has a weathered face, antique bronze skin, and his left arm is still made of a wooden mechanism. He is the master of the contemporary ink debate, Zhang Fuzi. The young man looked like he was 12 or 13 years old, with clear eyes lowered but a hint of deep sadness. He was dressed in black and white robes, and his feet were also a pair of ordinary grass shoes. I'm curious, why did you come back? Zhang Fuzi was curious. He had many disciples throughout his life, but after going out, none of them came back. Jin Yao smiled awkwardly and said, "Do you want to hear the truth or lie, teacher?" "Let's listen to the lie first. After all, I just came back and don't want to hit you." Master Xiang was not unaware of the reason, so he even wanted to know why this disciple came back, even if it was to deceive himself. "Because I missed the teacher." Jin Yao opened his eyes and said a lie. As a disciple of the Mohist school, there are strict teachings, such as frugality, prohibition of extravagance, and personal dedication. Most importantly, all Mohist students who serve in various countries must contribute their salaries to the Mohist school. This is simply impossible for Mohist students who originally came from poor backgrounds. The saying goes, it is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Not to mention being a disciple of the Mohist school who was no longer valued in the state of Qi, it would be great if he could make a living. Who would be willing to return and contribute their salary? Let's be honest. Zhang Fuzi sighed, wondering whether the teachings of the Mohist school were at fault or if the world had changed. How could the once glorious school of the Mohist school wither to such a degree? After the disciple graduated, he was full of energy and secretly thought to follow the example of his senior brothers. If he didn't return to his school, he would wield his sword and wander the martial arts world, pulling out his sword to help him when faced with injustice. Jin Yao shrank his head with a guilty conscience, secretly glancing at the change in his teacher's expression. "I'm still honest, I haven't lost the moral principles of the Mohist school." Zhang Fuzi's face remained expressionless, and he had been indifferent over the years. Although he also hoped that some disciples could come back, unfortunately, only this disciple who closed the door has returned so far. Well, yes, it's the one in charge of closing the door. Why did he come back later? Well, as soon as I left Linzi, I didn't go too far with the Qi caravan when I encountered the green forest of the road and escaped by pretending to be dead. Later, I was eating noodles at a noodle shop and had a quarrel at a neighboring table. As soon as my disciple tried to persuade me to fight, I was almost killed by a hidden weapon. Later, I was deceived by martial artists in the martial arts world and took away all my money. I was drugged, cursed, sprinkled with lime powder, and tricked by the beauty scheme. Jin Yaoyue said, "The more I wanted to cry, the world is so dark and dangerous," so he thought about meeting the mountain gate. No matter how bitter the mountain gate is, after all, it has shed blood and tears for the state of Qi. This mountain gate is Qi's compensation to the Mohist school, and it will forever belong to the Mohist school, never imposing taxes. Beauty trick. I remember you well, you're only 12 years old, right? Zhang Fuzi's thought was also peculiar. Although he wanted to laugh at his disciple's tragic experience, there were even more fun things to do. Jin Yao's face turned red instantly and his body was not healthy, but after all, he was a traveler. How could he not yearn for ancient brothels? The Mohist school never cared about the background of its disciples, whether they were poor or slaves. Of course, it would be better if they were nobles and nobles, but you are different. Zhang Fuzi looked at his cramped disciples and didn't make any further jokes. Does the teacher know the origin of the disciple's identity? Jin Yao immediately sat up straight. I have been in this world for a long time, without any golden fingers or memories. When I came back to life, I was already in the mountain gate of the Mo Bien lineage, with only 2 or 3 senior brothers, big and little cats, present. Your real name is Jin Yao, with the surname Ji. Your father used to be the head of the armored sect and was known as the great general of Wei, Jin Bai, said Master Xiang. Jin Yao was stunned. Jin Bai, who is this person in history? It seems like there is, but I can't remember it, but what about him? General Wei, I'm actually the 2nd generation of the army. Ha ha ha, teacher, I suddenly feel that the glory of Mo Bien should be guarded by you. I really can't shoulder the responsibility of revitalizing the sect. Jin Yao stood up with a smile. This is the correct way to open the time traveler. I used to dream of being a wealthy 2nd generation, just raising a poor child and a wealthy daughter. My parents never told me about it, but I never waited until my parents confessed to me when I died. I never expected that after crossing time, it finally came true. Ziyang Fuzi looked at Jin Yuanyuan's figure with a smile and said nonchalantly, you will come back again. Don't even think about it. I'll go to Wei, though young, and become the son of my great general. I'll pay my respects to you. Jin Yao waved his hand against the mountain gate, walked out of the 6 relatives' unrecognized steps, and followed the demon as he descended the mountain. The new book is online, and new and old book enthusiasts are welcome to invest and collect it. Be sure to read it thoroughly. New books are very popular and can only be recommended after reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Breaking Dreams, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Breaking Dreams, Seeking Collections and Recommendations. Walking down the mountain path, Jin Yao was so spirited, just like when he first came out of the mountain. However, this time he knew his background and fantasized about transforming himself into a luxurious person, shouting at a group of maids and maids. Give me 10. Are you a disciple of the Mohist school? On the mountain path, 2 young people around the age of 15 or 16 dressed in Confucian attire blocked Jin Yao's way and saluted him with Confucian etiquette. I used to be, I am now, and I won't be anymore. In the future, you can call me Little General of Wei, and Young Master of the Armored Sect. Jin Yao, a reckless nouveau riche, looked at the 2 of them. The Confucian disciples he once envied were nothing now. The Armored Gate. Wei Wuzu. The 2 companions looked at each other in surprise, and the young man wearing a blue Confucian robe spoke out. Yes, my father, the general of Wei, the head of the armored sect, Jin Bai. Jin Yao, who pretended to be a tiger and no longer envied that all Confucian disciples came from the sect, at least they were all officials. The 2 young men looked at each other again, dressed in purple clothes and exceptionally handsome, especially with a pair of peach blossom eyes that were definitely a promiscuous child. The young man looked around and urgently said, please don't say such things again in the future, or you will be burned. Envied, jealous, hateful. Jin Yao felt proud, thinking that these 2 must be driven by a mentality of hating the rich. Senior brother, he may not have left the Mo family for a long time. The young man in blue thought for a moment before speculating. The young man in purple nodded, but looking at Jin Yao, who was still feeling proud, he still wanted to persuade him, otherwise he would go out like this and die without knowing how. My little brother's father is a former general of the Wei state, known as the retired general of Jin Bai. Han Fei asked, accentuating the word before. Jin Yao originally wanted to say that his father with this body was so famous, even the state of Qi was famous. However, upon hearing that prefix, he had a bad premonition in his heart and his memories began to rise. Jin Bai, the great general of King Yu of Wei Anshi, attacked Zhao in 257 BC. The defense of Handan broke out, and Wei Gongzi Xinling Jun Wuji stole talismans to save Zhao. General Jin Bai was ordered by the king to stop advancing, and Xinling Jun's brave warrior Zhu Hai hammered and killed him in the tent. Jin Yao finally remembered the name, which is not because of the memories left by his predecessor, but because it was already in his past life. The background board of the name Zhu Hai, who achieved the theft of talismans by Lord Xinling to save Zhao, the swinging of a golden hammer to save Zhao, and the first shock in Handan. Since you have escaped a disaster, you should study hard in the Mohist school. With the reputation and ability of the Mohist school, Wei Guo and Xinling Jun will not take the initiative to provoke you. Han Fei comforted. Alas! Li Si looked at Jin Yao, who had lost his composure, and also sighed. Judging from this and his previous statement, he was probably sent by General Jin Bai to study at the Mohist school at a young age. He had just graduated, and the Mohist school was also afraid of affecting his disciples, so he concealed the other party. Now suddenly knowing that my father is gone, that feeling can be imagined. Han Fei also thought of it, so he and Li Si remained silent and didn't want to stimulate Jin Yao anymore. Jin Yao really cried, his dream of becoming a general, his luxurious clothing and food, his 10 hits, all gone. The most terrifying thing was that his enemies were still famous all over the world, and he planned to go and seek refuge with the notorious Lord Xinling. Wei Wuji, damn it! Jin Yao angrily cursed, what the first young master of the Warring States period, cutting off people and wealth, still killing parents. No, it's killing parents. This revenge must be avenged. Han Fei and Li Si fell silent again. The Prince of Xinling was so famous that no one could scold him, but the young man in front of him had the qualifications. Do you know where Mr. Zhang Fuzi is, young brother? Han Fei and Li Si didn't forget the purpose of their trip, and only asked when Jin Yao calmed down. Are you here to find the teacher? Jin Yao suddenly understood why the teacher didn't stop him. Perhaps he wanted to discover it, then hid in the corner and licked his wound to calm his mind. Finally, he had to return to the Mo family. Young brother, apprentice to Master Xiang. Han Fei and Li Si were both surprised, but on second thought, with Jin Bai's former position, it was normal for Jin Yao to apprentice to Master Xiang. You come with me. Jin Yaoxing walked back to the bamboo tower with Han Fei and Li Si, feeling helpless. Oh, you're back so soon. Zhang Fuzi was also a bit surprised, but after seeing Han Fei and Li Si, he understood a bit. Maybe he hasn't been able to uncover the truth yet. Jin Yao looked awkwardly at Xiang Fuzi, didn't step forward, just stood outside the door watching Han Fei and Li Si go to visit his teacher. Confucianism, a disciple of Sun Fuzi, Han Fei, Li Si, has met Zhang Fuzi. Han Fei and Li Si saluted respectfully. Han Fei, Li Si. Jin Yao looked at these two young people in a daze, and in an instant, his legs became erect. His thighs were thick and thick, one could be used as a money bag for the present and the other as a money bag for the future. As for the enmity between Jin Bai and the destruction of the family, after all, he had never seen Jin Bai and had no memories of the Jin clan, so he had no emotions, as if he were someone else. Oh! When will Confucianism come to our Mohist school? Zhang Fuzi was also a bit surprised. Confucianists and Mohists have been fighting against each other since the establishment of Mohists. Whether it's the conflict between Mohist and Confucian beliefs or the struggle between prominent schools, both sides are smiling at each other and secretly killing each other. In the name of the teacher, I have come to invite you to attend the debate at Jixia Academy in 3 days' time. Li Si said confidently and sent an invitation letter. Zhang Fuzi became even more curious about what kind of debate would invite him, that is, to invite high-level officials of the Mohist school to participate in the ceremony. If he was invited, I'm afraid all the top 100 leaders in Linzi would also be invited. The debate over sexuality. Zhang Fuzi looked at the name of the debate on the invitation letter and was even more surprised. Is Sun Quan going to war with Confucianism? Zhang Fuzi looked at Han Fei and Li Si and asked. Confucianism is actually very chaotic, not much worse than the Mohist school, or in other words, the 3 major schools of thought in the world. Confucianism, Taoism, and Mohist schools have actually split after their ancestors. Taoism divides heaven and man, and then also divides yin and yang, huang and lao, etc. Mohist schools divide the Mohist school into 3 parts, and Confucianism is powerful. The 10 philosophers and 70.2 sages of the Confucian school are also jokingly called the 10 thieves of the Confucian school, and the 70.2 paths are against the king. After Kong Zhongni, the Confucian sect was in chaos, with each person misinterpreting the teachings of the classics and believing that they were the orthodox of the Confucian sect. They were beaten to the point of thinking, but of course, Zhang Fuzi never admitted that the Mohist school was also involved in this. However, after Meng Ku, he redefined Confucianism, and it was only through benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trustworthiness that Confucianism ended its internal turmoil. Unfortunately, it is better to die than to die. When Sun Quan was born, he directly provoked the chaos of Confucianism. Sun Quan believed that the current Confucianism is a group of idealistic and corrupt scholars who do not value reality and only fantasize about the world, but do not actually do anything about it. He then demoted Mencius to be worthless, and the most crucial issue is the debate between good and evil nature. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Connotation of Ink Debate, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 The Connotation of Ink Debate. Seeking collection and recommendation. No wonder 100 schools of thought were invited to observe the ceremony, and this victory or defeat also determined Sun Quan's position in Confucianism. If Sun Quan wins, Confucianism must admit that it is a corrupt scholar, and the past benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trustworthiness were all illusions. If the Confucian school wins, Sun Quan may be expelled from the Confucian school, step down from the position of offering wine at the Jixia Academy, and leave the state of Qi. Sir, do you think that human nature is inherently good or inherently evil? Han Fei looked at Xiang Fuzi, put away his promiscuous nature, and respectfully saluted. Debate is not just about debate, there will be half-time, which means it won't end in a day, at least for 3 days, and then on these 3 nights, it's unclear how many people will die. So, both sides were shaking people and pulling the 100 schools to support themselves, while the Mohists had always been at odds with Confucianism. That's why Han Fei and Li Si came to invite the Prime Minister. After all, whether they could fight or not, the Mohists could fight. There are many ancestors and predecessors in Jixia Academy, including Tao, Confucianism, Ming, Fa, Zhonghen, Bing, Nong, Yin and Yang, light and heavy, etc., but there is no Mohist school. Why is this? Han Fei once asked the teacher, and Sun Quan's answer was that a quarrel may not be too much, but a fight will definitely not be enough. Therefore, the 100 schools of thought in Jixia Academy joined forces to prohibit the participation of Mohist masters and leaders above the level of leader, so naturally there were not many famous people. There are only 2 of us disciples left in the Mo family. I'm afraid we can't help you anymore. Master Xiang was also very clear about the purpose of Sun Quan sending them and shook his head. They were in a difficult situation to protect themselves, so how could they help with their boxing? Upon hearing Zhang Fuzi's words, both Han Fei and Li Si fell silent. This time, the other party brought the peasant family to an end, and the state of Qi was also the territory of the peasant family with countless experts. That's why they had no choice but to beg the Mo family, and only the Mo family could suppress the peasant family. Why don't you go find the Taoist and Yin-Yang families? Zhang Fuzi thought for a moment, and it seemed that the head of the Taoist family, He Guanzi, was in Chi-Chu, as well as the Nan-Zi of the Yin-Yang family. I've looked for it. Han Fei and Li Si felt a bit helpless. The 100 schools of thought didn't want to see another giant of Confucianism emerge, so almost all stood on their opposite side. Except for the pragmatic 100 schools of thought such as legalism and military science, the others seemed to stand on their opposite side. Then let's tell Sun Quan to pack up and get ready to run. Zhang Fuzi shook his head. Unless the current leader of the Mo family brings his divine killing disciples, Sun Quan's lineage will lose one on the next day, and no one can protect those disciples with the help of experts. Han Fei and Li Si bid farewell. Han Fei and Li Si left the Mohist sect with a bleak expression. They also knew that the Mabian faction was empty, but they still came with a hopeful hope. However, when they saw the Mabian faction with only 2 people left, they knew it was a bit difficult for them. I can't believe that the once glorious Mo Bien lineage is now so bleak. After leaving the Mo school gate, Han Fei and Li Si couldn't help but sigh. You're not leaving yet, you're not going to be your young master anymore. Zhang Fuzi asked angrily as he looked at Jin Yao standing in the corner. The disciple felt that the kindness of the sect's upbringing had to be repaid. The teacher had no children under his command and should have been served by the disciple. Jin Yao walked resentfully to Xiang Fuzi, massaging and trying to please him. Zhang Fuzi frowned and said, "Do you all know?" Jin Yao paused and nodded. "Not sad." Jin Yao shook his head. "Not sad." Jin Yao still shook his head. "I really don't know if I should say you're cold-blooded or that you're deep in the city." Zhang Fuzi sighed, realizing that the revenge of breaking the family and destroying the family had no emotional change, either due to your cold nature or extreme tolerance. "What kind of person does the teacher want me to be?" Jin Yao asked with a shy face. Zhang Fuzi looked up at Jin Yao, who was trying to please him like a dog. He noticed that he couldn't understand this disciple anymore and scolded with a smile, "You're neither of them, you're more like a dog. Why do you still bring insults?" Jin Yao felt frustrated, whether he had enjoyed father's love and family care. Without emotions, it was really without emotions. What happened between Jin Bai and the Jin family should have been his accident, but for himself, who had a blank memory of his predecessor, it was just a story. Let him pretend to be sad, he really can't do it. Forget it, you're the only one left in the Mo Bien lineage. Follow me as a teacher. Zhang Fuzi stood up, and Jin Yao hurriedly went to help, following Zhang Fuzi towards the back mountain. What you have learned before are all the external teachings and swordsmanship of the Mohist school. Except for the authentic mind technique, everything else is not the core. Zhang Fuzi said as he walked. Ah! Jin Yao was stunned for 6 years. Do you know how I came through these 6 years? What I learned was just superficial. The Mohist school has 2 core elements, mechanisms and martial arts. To put it bluntly, when all martial arts come from the Mohist school, you have only learned a Mozi sword technique. It is fortunate that you were not killed when you went out, and the mental techniques taught to you are only the first 3 that have been deleted. Zhang Fuzi said calmly, then opened the floor in front of the Mozi statue in the main hall of the Mo debate. A downward tunnel appeared in front of the 2 people. There is such a place at the mountain gate. He had been living here for 6 years and really didn't know that there was such a secret passage at the mountain gate. Mohist mechanisms, walking with wood and stone, rely solely on you. You only know the basics of mechanism techniques, and you still want to find them. Xiangfu sneered and then reminded, follow in the footsteps of the teacher, take the wrong step, What would happen if I took the wrong step? Jin Yao asked as he looked at the suddenly lit corridor and the black and white patterned tiles on the ground. It's not a big deal to take a wrong step, just be careful in your next life. Zhang Fuzi smiled and took the lead in walking down the corridor. Jin Yao was really scared, carefully following behind Xiang Fuzi. He didn't dare to make a mistake or exert force, and stared at Xiang Fuzi's footsteps lightly. Quickly, the corridor came to an end, and a beam of light fell from the sky, illuminating the entire space. It was a square, and the light was also reflected and converged through holes through a mirror, ultimately illuminating the entire square. However, from the outside, there was no idea that there was such a space underground. Back then, the Mohist school declined, and all kinds of martial arts, mechanism techniques, and scriptures were sent back to the Mohist school headquarters without leaving anything behind. What was here was only something that was collected later and could not be moved away. Zhang Fuzi said as he looked at Jin Yao, who was still trembling after walking through the corridor. Jin Yao quickly jumped up to Xiang Fuzi and looked at the entire underground space. The square was large and there were many dark rooms, but now they were all empty. Obviously, there should have been a lot of things placed in it before. That is one of the most outstanding masterpieces of the Mohist school's mechanism technique, and also the first generation of the White Tiger, 0. The original design of the White Tiger was that it could fly, but unfortunately it failed later. The Mohist faction withdrew and took away the blueprint of the White Tiger, leaving only one White Tiger for the successive prime ministers to study. Zhang Fuzi pointed to a dark room to the right and introduced it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Ancient Classics, Seeking Recommendation * Seeking Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Classic of the Past, Seeking Recommendation in Collection, the 0 White Tiger, which one can fly. Jin Yao suddenly remembered that in the bright moon of Qin Dynasty, those 3 little ones were just mirages flying up on the mechanism of the White Tiger, but he didn't expect to see the 0 White Tiger in Linzi. The White Tiger is a masterpiece of my Mo Bian lineage, the Vermilion Bird is a masterpiece of Deng Lingzi's lineage, and the Xuanwu comes from the Xianglizi lineage, while the Qinglong is created by the combined efforts of the 3 lineages. Zhang Fuzi introduced, pointing to the other 2 dark rooms, each containing a mechanism Vermilion Bird and Xuanwu. Where is Qinglong? Jin Yao was most curious about Qinglong, the eldest of the 4 major mechanical beasts of the Mohist school, because he had never appeared in anime before. You don't want to see the Qinglong. Zhang Fuzi said calmly, taking Jin Yao to the former scripture pavilion. What would happen if I saw it? Jin Yao asked more curiously. It's nothing, it's better to pay attention to it in the next life, hoping not to see it again. Zhang Fuzi stroked his white beard and then inserted his mechanism hand into a hole next to a stone door. Kaka kaka, there was a sound of the mechanism gears turning, and then the stone door slowly opened upwards, revealing a towering chamber. Mo Bien's lineage is in the hands of the master, and there are only a few left in our hands. Before you return, the teacher thought that whoever comes back, Qimo's lineage will be handed over to whoever comes back. Master Xiang took Jin Yao's wrist and walked into the library, bowing to the bookshelves full of books. Jin Yao glanced around and saw many names marked on the bookshelf. The bookshelves on the left were all empty, including Light, Shadow, Universe. Up, down, left, right, front, back, Zhou. Ancient, Present, Lie, Heaven. Sun, Moon, Star. On the right side, Electric Light, Divine Walk, 10 Steps and 1 Kill, UNV Sword, Mozi Sword Technique, Thunder God Hammer, Yang Chun by Shui, Dark, Poison, Music. Are still empty. In front of us are Mozi, Jing Shang, Jing Xia, Jing Shua Shang, Jing Shua Xia, Jia Yong, Jia Burial, Fei Lu, Fei Attack, Fei Ming, Fei Confucianism, Shijingi, Bei Wei. Fortunately, all of them are on this bookshelf. However, Jin Yao was a bit confused. In his memory, the teachings of the Mohist school only included the 10 major propositions of the 2 sections, 2 Shangs, 3 non-principles, Minggui, Tianji, and universal love. I haven't heard of any other non-Confucian, defensive, and just principles. The stone gate that entered the Sutra Pavilion closed, and a series of bookshelves appeared, which were also complete, including works by hundreds of scholars such as New Preface, Corpse, Yanzi Spring and Autumn, Guanzi, Book of the Lord of Shang, Shensi, and so on. Jin Yao also guessed the placement relationship of these bookshelves. On the left is the mechanism and epistemology of the Mohist school, on the right is the martial arts of the Mohist school, directly in front is the scriptures and teachings of the Mohist school, and behind is the collection of the 100 masters of the Mohist school. Retrieving his gaze, Jin Yao was shocked for the first time by the heritage of the Mohist school. When the Mohist school was at its peak, it would be so glorious. It was already remarkable for the aristocrats of this era to have a few volumes of scriptures to pass down their lineage. Looking at the Mohist school's collection of scriptures, there were at least 3,000 books, indicating how powerful the Mohist school was back then. When it comes to what Zhang Fuzi said, when the Mo debating faction reached their hands, only he and Zhang Fuzi were left. The changes in the world are so terrifying. The martial arts and scriptures passed down to you as a teacher are actually edited and there is no core of the Mohist school. These are the true core of the Mohist school. Zhang Fuzi walked to the bookshelf in front of him, took off a volume of ancient books, and handed them to Jin Yao. Jin Yao took a closer look at Jiayong Shang and opened it carefully. He realized that many of them knew each other and had learned them over the years, but there were differences. This volume of scripture added many sentences and characters, and these words and sentences were the key. No wonder he felt that when he started learning, he lacked the core and was very scattered. It turned out that the key words were all hidden. Do you know why 100 schools of thought are called 100 schools of thought? Zhang Fuzi didn't disturb Jin Yao while reading the scriptures, silently watching before asking. Jin Yao closed the scriptures and shook his head. He knew about the 100 schools of thought, but he only knew about them. He didn't know exactly how to become a family, let alone the standards and threshold for becoming a family. 100 schools of thought each have their own core scriptures, with at least one scripture as the foundation. However, how difficult it is to have one scripture and one book, even the Mohist school only has one scripture named Mojing. Zhang Fuzi sighed. Although the Central Plains is known as a civilization, there are very few that can truly be defined as scriptures. To this day, there are only a few of them, including the Taoist, De Dao Jing, the Zhou Kun Su Kun Li's I Jing, the Confucian collection of the Book of Songs, by royal families in various countries, the Confucian self-compiled Xiao Jing, and the Mohist Mo Jing. How is the definition of scripture? Jin Yao was curious. The ancients seem to have a very strict definition of scripture, not as simple as later evaluations. They casually listed a book as a scripture, especially after Buddhism was introduced to the Central Plains, the term scripture became rampant, and the Diamond Sutra and Yanhua Sutra were often referred to as bull hair. Speaking of classics, we need to start with measurement units. Do you know how many measurement units we have? Zhang Fuzi asked in response. 10 million, 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 1 billion, 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, 1 trillion. Jin Yao said without hesitation. The number above the trillion was too large, reaching over 1,000 trillion, he remembered it was the Western G, and as for the explanation of G, he was also unclear. 10,000 are called omens, omens are called capitals, capitals are called gai, gai is called z, zz is called rang, rang is called go, go is called jian, jian is called zheng, zheng is called zai, zai is called ji, and after ji is infinite, it is called wuji. Zhang Fuzi helped Jin Yao supplement the measurement units after the omens. So, is jing equivalent to jing? Jin Yao understood a bit, but still didn't quite understand. Well, the jing is equivalent to the jing, and each jing represents the pinnacle of the Tao, which can give rise to countless scholars and books. Therefore, it is called jing. Each jing is infinitely vast, which is why there is a saying in front of the Bai Shou Jing, because even if a person learns Bai Tu from a young age, they cannot learn the entire jing. Zhang Fuzi nodded and continued to explain. Jin Yao was truly shocked. It is said that ancient people were very particular about the use of characters and were very precise. However, now it seems that they are precise to the point of origin. Whether it is the Tao Te Ching, the Book of Songs, the Book of Changes, the Mo Jing, or the Book of Filial Piety, they represent an infinite existence that can be derived. The true name of the Tao Te Ching is the sum of virtue and Tao. The Book of Songs is the ancestor of poetry, songs, prose, and legendary novels. The Book of Changes, on the other hand, is terrifying, claiming that all things are easy, but the Book of Changes is not easy. The Book of Songs is one of the three major philosophical schools of ancient times, the origin of science, and the starting point of epistemology. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Classic and Martial Arts, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Classic and Martial Arts Seeking Collection Recommendation. Each scripture is not only the sum of the present, but also the starting point of the future, and the ancients seem to be looking forward to the transcendence of future generations, so they only named it the scripture, leaving behind an endless future. The scripture is the foundation of the establishment of 100 schools of thought, and it is also the guarantee of military power. Do you know that there are 3 levels of martial arts in the world? Third rate, second rate, first class, and leader level, with a great master above the leader. Zhang Fuzi looked at Jin Yao and spoke again. Jin Yao nodded as the little chicken pecked at the rice. He had also traveled to the martial arts world for some time and knew that martial artists were also divided into levels. Although this level may not necessarily represent invincibility, without considering being surrounded and killed, playing second rate is no different from being a cruel vegetable. As for the leader level move, he hasn't encountered it yet, otherwise he might not be here either. Xia may not necessarily be Mo, but Mo must be Xia, not only because of the chivalrous spirit of the Mo school, but also because of the martial arts of the Mo school. Do you know why? Xiangfu looked at Jin Yao, who had become honest, and stroked his beard again. Jin Yao shook his head. Having been in this world for so many years, he thought he had understood the world of the Qin Dynasty, but only then did he realize that half of it was hidden by the old man in front of him, and what he saw was only what the lower class could see. Because of the scriptures, each martial arts school has its own scripture guidance. Without scripture guidance, martial arts can only reach the end of the second class and cannot advance in every inch. Advanced martial arts contain principles. Without scripture guidance, it is impossible to understand the mysterious mind technique, let alone use the power of heaven and earth for oneself. Zhang Fuzi suddenly took a hand and pointed to Jin Yao's forehead. Jin Yao wanted to hide, but found that the air around him seemed to condense. No matter where he hid, he would be guided by this guidance and could only watch it reach his forehead. A slight chill came from the center of his eyebrows. Jin Yao opened his eyes and realized that Zhang Fuzi had already sat in front of him, with an exceptionally gorgeous sword in his hand at some point. Just at a glance, Jin Yao was deeply attracted by the sword. The sword was slender and beautiful, with a dazzling crystal silver body that was not to be forced into view. The green leather sheath of the sword was completely natural, embedded with 18 blood-red gemstones. At first glance, it was not an ordinary sword. Even Jin Yao, who was greedy as his life, did not feel any distractions or greed when he saw this sword. He only felt that Zhang Fuzi, who was holding the sword, was like an independent immortal, and also like a hermit sage who was detached from the world. When it comes to the realm of classics and righteousness, it has to be said that there are very few famous swords in the world, and each famous sword will choose its owner. A first-class master with a famous sword is enough to crush a master of the same level who does not have a famous weapon. Do you know why? Xiangfu handed the famous sword to Jin Yao, letting him feel the difference it brings. Jin Yao felt the famous sword in his hand, slowly closing his eyes and holding it in his hand. He seemed to see himself standing on the top of 10,000 mountains, observing the changes of the sea and the floating clouds. His mood was unusually calm. The sword in his hand was a deadly weapon, but he couldn't muster any killing intent. Open-mindedness like a valley. For words came to Jin Yao's mind, which were the feelings brought to him by this famous sword and also influencing him, making him no longer entangled in distractions and solely focused on the Haosho scriptures, ignoring the changes in the world. Ding, the famous sword selected its master, automatically unsheathed, fluttering in the air, drawing iron and silver hooks, and finally standing quietly in front of Jin Yao. Generosity helps the world. Jin Yao suddenly understood another contradictory characteristic of this sword. The sword has two edges, one side is to help him escape the dust, and the other side is to help him in danger and save the people. Your nature is in harmony with Ling Su. Xiang Fuzi observed this person's sword as he handed it to Jin Yao. There are many famous swords in the Mohist school, and the token of the great master is Mo Mei, representing not non-aggression, but universal love. However, no one has reached the level of Mozi, so only non-aggression is known to the world, which is called Mo Mei Wufeng, like sword non-aggression. Nowadays, it is also controlled by the Deng Lingzi lineage, that is, the Mo Xia lineage. As a faction of Mo Bian also has its own famous sword, Lingshu, Empty Valley Facing the Wind, and Yishir Lingshu. Lingshu also represents the proposition of the Mohist school, which is to transcend the mundane world and focus solely on studying the Mohist scriptures. In a famous sword, there is one's own way and martial arts, so a first-class expert with a famous weapon is equivalent to mastering an exclusive way and reaching the level of a master. Jin Yao finally understood Xiang Fuzi's question. It's like Yang Guo's melancholic palm. When he was single, his palm power was exceptionally fierce due to longing, but after having a woman, his palm power halved, and he couldn't even hit that palm again. Sure enough, the Supreme Sword Manual is correct. If there is no woman in the heart, pulling out the sword will be natural. Jin Yao's mind wandered off. Not bad, this is the assistance that famous weapons provide to warriors. They have the same function as the scriptures, and are even easier to master than the scriptures, because warriors do not need to study the scriptures too much, and famous weapons can come with them. Xiang Fuzi nodded and explained. But in order to truly reach the level of a master, one needs to comprehend and master a belief in a great path, and the classics of the 100 schools are the only existence that can help warriors reach that level. Xiang Fuzi continued. Jin Yao understands now, no wonder there are so few grandmasters, and they are all bad old men. That's to reach the level of the disciples. The Mohist mental techniques you learned before lack the coordination of scriptures and meanings, so the internal forces you cultivate are also scattered and mixed, just like blood and flesh, lacking muscles and bones to make it condense. Xiang Fuzi pointed to the Jieyong in Jin Yao's hand. This is the first level of the Mohist mental technique, the tendons and bones of the Jieyong realm. Jin Yao looked at the ancient books in his hand and finally understood why the 100 schools were strong. Because you had learned the martial arts of the 100 schools, if you wanted to be strong, you had to learn their scriptures. And once you learned their scriptures, you would naturally be influenced by them and eventually become a member of the 100 schools. Otherwise, you would have betrayed what you had learned, your internal power would be disrupted, and you would naturally become demonic. Imagine how a person who betrays their own learning and beliefs can become stronger. This is a conspiracy of the 100 schools of thought, as well as a Yang scheme. In order to obtain the martial arts of the 100 schools of thought, one naturally needs to learn the teachings of the 100 schools of thought and become a disciple of them. No wonder Master Xiang was able to calmly and casually lead him into the secret realm of the Mohist debate lineage, witnessing the vastness of the world. Naturally, he wanted to possess it and became a disciple of the Mohist debate lineage. The deeper he learned, the deeper his influence naturally became, ultimately becoming a complete Mohist disciple. You are actually very good. Although you have hidden your horizontal training golden body, you cannot hide it from your teacher. If you are seen by the Su family of the Mo family, you must be very happy. Xiang Fuzi looked at Jin Yao with a smile. Horizontal training with golden body, infinite strength, and fearless of flames and cold. It's the imperial blacksmith of a top-notch swordsmith. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The relationship between the three meridians of Mohism, seeking collection * seeking recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The relationship among the three meridians of Mohist school. Seeking collection and recommendation. Jin Yao was stunned. His horizontal training golden body had been hidden and tucked away all along, because by the time he woke up, his golden body had already been forcibly broken. It took him several years to slowly recover and reconnect, and it had never been shown in front of anyone. How did the teacher know? Everyone has their own secrets, and even as a teacher, I won't meddle too much. While teaching you the martial arts of swordsmanship, I will also teach you the art of swords, spears, shields, and halberds. Zhang Fuzi thought to himself. Jin Yao was a bit puzzled, and that's why. Swordsmanship is the foundation of survival. When wandering in the martial arts world, never let anyone know your trump card. In name, you are a swordsman, and everyone will pay attention to your sword. At this moment, when you suddenly draw a sword, do you think the other party can survive? Xiangfu smiled and shared his experience of why he became the last survivor of the Mo debate faction. Jin Yao imagined that with a strong aversion to cold and skilled moves, life and death would often only happen in an instant. He would become famous with his sword, and when he faced each other, the opponent would definitely pay attention to his sword. However, when he suddenly drew a sword, the enemy would react more slowly than half a beat, and this half beat would kill him. I like it. Jin Yao became interested, and it would be great to be a happy old 6. These days, you will first study Jeong, Jiber, and Faming. Then, when you reach the 4th level of cultivation, Fail, you can go and learn Fail. Zhang Fuzi stood up and pointed to the ancient scrolls on the bookshelf full of books. Master, in fact, my cultivation has reached the level of 6 levels of Shangtong. Jin Yao whispered. Zhang Fuzi was stunned. At the age of 12, the Mohist school's mental cultivation reached the 6th level, but still lacked the assistance of scriptures and righteousness. What kind of demon is this? Without the assistance of scriptures and righteousness, it is almost impossible to break through the 5th level. How did you do it? Zhang Fuzi's wooden mechanism hand trembled and changed, wanting to slice this guy into pieces. Well, the disciple doesn't have any scriptures, so he creates his own scriptures. Saving energy means telling disciples that they don't have much internal energy now, so they should save some. Festival burial means that I am still a small shrimp in the martial arts world, the kind of person who litters the grave and doesn't even need to be buried when dead. Non-destiny means that it's still very difficult now, and destiny is not one's own. Take it easy. I'm not happy to say that now is the time to work hard, so let's put aside the noise and emotions. Non-attack means that although you are a bit strong, if you can avoid fighting, don't fight. Shang Tong also said that the martial arts world is not about fighting and killing, but about being worldly wise. It is important to acknowledge that others are stronger than oneself. Shang Xian means that although you have 2 brushes, it's easy to provoke stronger ones, so quickly find a thigh to hold on to. Jin Yao slowly spoke up and expressed his state of mind when he cooperated with Mozi's mental cultivation. Zhang Fuzi's mouth twitched and his beard shook up and down. Is this really the state of mind in the martial arts of the Mo family? Is this okay too? Can the coffin board of Emperor Mozu still hold down? Although you have your own understanding, after all, you are going through a different path. It is difficult to be useful when you reach the realm of Tianji and Mingue, so you still need to study the scriptures again. Xiangfu touched Jin Yao's head, and it seemed that this inheritor was really good. Since you have reached your cultivation level, it's time to talk to you about the relationship between the 3 schools of Mohism. Zhang Fuzi originally planned to talk to Jin Yao about the true relationship of Mohism when he could stand alone. Now it seems that it's time. Teacher, please speak. Jin Yao sat up straight again, waiting for Zhang Fuzi to speak. He didn't believe that the Mohist school was really divided. If that were the case, he wouldn't have sent the scriptures, martial arts, mechanisms, and beasts back to the main courtyard for safekeeping and handed them over to the other 2 Meridians when the Mohist school was declining. The Mohist school was too strong in the past and was feared by various feudal lords. Therefore, the Mohist school had to be split up, Otherwise our Mohist school would be the first to be killed by the feudal lords in the world. Zhang Fuzi explained the reason for the split of the Mohist school, not the split of Mohist disciples after Emperor Mozu. Those were all for outsiders to see. How strong was the Mohist school during its heyday? Jin Yao was also curious. Let me put it this way, the most prosperous period of the Mohist school was during the reign of Emperor Mozu. Among the feudal lords at that time, Song and Qi were the strongest, and the Song state was dominating and wanted to suppress Qi. Therefore, they forcibly honored Emperor Mozu as the son of Song and gained the support of the Mohist school. Zhang Fuzi smiled proudly and said. Jin Yao understood that being poor causes trouble and no one knows, while being rich has distant relatives in the deep mountains. Emperor Mozu and the Mohist school have become stronger, and the lords of various countries are not considering whether to use the Mohist school, but are trying their best to win over the Mohist school. Compared to the demonstration with 3,000 disciples, but no one used as Confucius and Confucianism, the strength of the Mohist school back then is evident. At that time, there were 100,000 Mohist swordsmen, who were still the kind of well-trained disciples who could form a large army, form a battle formation, and with the addition of Mohist mechanism techniques, even the state of Qi may not be comparable to the Mohist school. Zhang Fuzi continued. Grasp the grass, Jin Yao pressed his pulse, and Qi was known as the country of thousands of chariots, with 100,000 armored soldiers. By comparison, the Mohist school can easily be compared to a country, even stronger than the various feudal lords at that time. No wonder the Song state is also coming to seek kinship and cause trouble. If they don't listen, they will really be killed. How did you think the Mohists dared to kill the tyrants and officials of various feudal states? It was because at that time, our Mohists had the ability to defend a country alone. Zhang Fuzi was also full of longing for the legendary turbulent years of the Mohists. Going too far, after the 3 divisions of the Mohist school, it was actually divided according to the Mohist model. The Mohist school was responsible for theoretical research, including martial arts, mechanism techniques, thoughts, classics, and so on. The Zhangzi school was the embodiment, responsible for transforming the theory of the Mohist school into physical objects. The Denglingzi school was the practitioner, applying the theory and physical objects of the other 2 schools to the present world and feedback back to the other 2 schools for improvement. Zhang Fuzi explained the role of the Mohist school's 3 schools. Jin Yao was stunned again. Isn't this the scientific and industrial system of later generations? A group of top scientists are responsible for theoretical research, then rely on industrial systems to manufacture and complete, and finally deliver to the market for practice, and then provide feedback on changes and updates. When the 3 factions argue fiercely, it means that our Mohist school has made a more significant invention to eliminate the world's attention. When the 4 beasts of the Mohist school were born, it was like this. Zhang Fuzi was very satisfied with Jin Yao's expression change. When he took over as the leader of the Mobian school, he was also frightened. Why did the population of the Mobian branch wither to such a point, while the other 2 branches sat idly by? Jin Yao suddenly noticed something unusual. If the 3 branches each performed their respective duties, why would the other 2 branches watch as the Mobian branch declined? Because the Mobian branch withered too quickly, catching the other 2 branches off guard. In recent years, the other 2 branches have also been reorganizing the Mobian branch, but the mountain gate will no longer be located in Linzi because the Jixia Academy has been abolished, and the threat of the Mo family to the feudal lords is not that great. There is no problem with the 3 branches merging again, said Xiangfu with a smile. You wouldn't really think that we have sent back so many things from the Mobian lineage, would that be true? In fact, the Mobian lineage has already merged into the other 2 lineages, and it's not just you and my master and disciple, said Master Xiang with a smile. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Ultimate Mysteries of Mohist School. Mathematics, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Ultimate Mysteries of Mohism. Mathematics. Seeking collections and recommendations. Jin Yao is really foolish. Indeed, none of the 100 schools are simple. They are all obedient in appearance. If someone dares to come and cause trouble, they will tell you what is called Kong Barbie. 3 days later, let's go see the internal strife of Confucianism. The division of Confucianism is really different from ours. They are really divided and dare to kill each other. Zhang Fuzi smiled and left Jin Yao in the secret realm. Jin Yao nodded. He was still waiting to find his current thigh and future thigh. If he didn't hug 2 thighs, he would be a fool. At the same time, he also wanted to know what Han Fei's scales were. Zhang Fuzi left, but Jin Yao remained in the secret realm and diligently studied the teachings of the Mohist school. Through his recent understanding, he was well aware that his distorted understanding of Mohist martial arts was problematic, and what he needed to do now was to correct it again. With a weak grip, Jin Yao was able to quickly calm down and forget about sleep and food, tirelessly absorbing the inheritance and knowledge of the Mohist school. 3 days later, Zhang Fuzi reopened the door of the secret realm and heard a curse. What's wrong? Zhang Fuzi was curious, and the teachings of the Mohist scriptures didn't make people feel irritable, did they? Why mathematics? Jin Yaomeng said. Why did the agreed-upon mechanisms and martial arts ultimately turn into mathematics? Zhang Fuzi looked at the Mozi note in Jin Yao's hand, which was placed in the highest position, and his beard trembled unnaturally. It was an arithmetic problem, and he had also been dominated by that note before. Now, thinking about it, he still has lingering fear. Question. Guodaxia's sword is 3 feet 3, Xiongnu Jindao Man's sword is 3 feet 1. Guodaxia drew his sword opposite Jindao Man. How many times did Guodaxia pierce Jindao Man's body? Question. Guodaxia is chasing the Golden Blade Man at a speed of 3 zhang per breath. It is known that the Golden Blade Man is breathing 2 zhang and 5 zhang per breath, with a distance of 10 zhang between the 2 sides. When can Guodaxia catch up with the Golden Blade Man? Question. Guodaxia seriously injured Jindao Man. It is known that Jindao Man's body has a total of 5 liters of blood, bleeding 3 cents per breath. When did Jindao Man die with all his blood flowing out? Jin Yao never expected that Mozi's letter would leave such a thing. It was actually mathematics. It's like going through countless hardships, finding the martial arts secrets left by our predecessors, waiting to learn martial arts, invincible in the world, and making a name for ourselves. But when we open it up, it turns out to be mathematics. He thought that what Mozi's letters would leave behind would be some contemplation and legends, even some advanced mechanism techniques and martial arts secrets, but who knew it would be mathematics? And there were many volumes of letters, starting with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, followed by involving univariate and quadratic equations, bivariate and quadratic equations, and even the final ones. Jin Yao couldn't understand them at all and couldn't continue with them. He came up with trajectory equations, dihedral angles, and space. The title is also very magical, very martial arts. It is known that Guodaxia is facing 4 Golden Blade barbarians, among which A, B, and Guodaxia are at the same distance from each other. Golden Blade Barbarian C stands in the center of A and B, and the Xiongnu Grand Master stands in the center of Guodaxia and Golden Blade Barbarians A and B. He asks, from what angle does Guodaxia use his sword to block the attacks of the Grand Master, Barbarians A, and Barbarians C and kill Barbarians B at the same time? Jin Yao really cried, tears streaming down his face. He only wished he hadn't studied and hadn't learned how to solve this dihedral angle problem. This world is not peaceful. Hello. These questions can all become reality. If you can't solve them, you will really die if you encounter them in the future. Just like the Olympics, there are always some amateur athletes who surpass professional athletes. For example, in shooting competitions, a guy whose main profession is a doctor actually wins a gold medal. In the end, when looking at their nationality, everyone becomes calm. The opponent comes from a war-torn country, and the athlete works hard for honor, while the opponent's amateur is really risking their life. Now Jin Yao has truly realized that in the past, learning mathematics was to cope with exams, but now learning mathematics is to save his life. Be good, let's not cry. This thing is not something that ordinary people can do. Zhang Fuzi comforted after looking at the pictures and problem-solving methods on the ground. Can the teacher do it? Jin Yao pointed to the question and looked eagerly at his own teacher. Zhang Fuzi roughly looked at the question and blurted out, just tilted up 30 degrees. Wow! Jin Yao cried, saying that you wouldn't even know how to calculate at a glance. Cough cough, Zhang Fuzi awkwardly smiled, thinking that he really didn't know how to do it. He just subconsciously inserted himself into the scene of Guodashia, and he could think of the most suitable angle for wielding the sword. As for how to calculate, he really didn't know, it was all based on experience. Jin Yao, who never gave up, once again dug up those strange questions about space and trajectory equations. He looked at Xiang Fuzi eagerly, hoping that it wasn't just him who didn't know. However, it was destined to disappoint him. Zhang Fuzi almost always said the answer in seconds, completely causing him to collapse and fall into self-doubt. These questions were really so simple, or were he really a complete academic failure? That's why he didn't know. Be good, let's not cry. This thing is really beyond human comprehension. No one in the entire Mohist school has achieved what you can do now in the past 300 years. Zhang Fuzi comforted and was also shocked that Jin Yao could calculate those answers through arithmetic. All the disciples and sages of the Mohist school thought that the questions in Mozi's letters were meant to test their martial arts and experience. Seeing Jin Yao's ghost-drawn talisman on the ground, he was truly shocked. These things were not obtained through experience, but could really be calculated. Can you tell me how you calculate? Zhang Fuzi took out the simple questions in front and asked. Jin Yao nodded, as if going back to when the teacher was checking homework, explaining the calculation process one by one. The more Zhang Fuzi listened, the greater the change in his expression. At first, he could still understand, but later he couldn't understand either. But looking at Jin Yao, who was looking forward to receiving approval, he felt embarrassed to say that he couldn't understand. He could only pretend to be deep and stroke his beard, nodding occasionally. Do you mean to set up a space with oneself as the center, place various enemies in various positions, no longer treat them as one person, but as numbers, and finally simulate the opponent's movement direction through arithmetic, and wield the sword? Xiang Fuzi was completely shocked by Jin Yao's concept of spatial right-angle sitting standard system. He thought of a precious treasure of the Mohist school, Tongfang. Tongfang is not just a four-square existence, with a grid of squares that can rotate without dead corners. By substituting it into Jin Yao's idea, the mystery of Tongfang can be solved. Thinking of this, Zhang Fuzi's breathing became rapid, and this treasure must remain in the Mo family and be taken back to the Mo family headquarters for protection. Isn't it just a feud between the state of Wei and Lord Xinling? If you dare to come to the Mo family and cause trouble, they will all be killed. Although the current Mohist school cannot kill the state of Wei, the king of Wei, Lord Xinling, and the state of Wei are different. The Mohist school has done everything possible to kill the king of Wei and Lord Xinling. Change the status at 9 o'clock, investment can start. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Jixia Academy, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Jixia Academy, Seeking Collection and Recommendation. Zhang Fuzi is well aware of the changes that this concept of the universe will bring to martial arts. Not all warriors are seasoned warriors who can calculate their own situation based on experience in a short moment and then choose the best one to use. Once this idea is promoted among Mohist disciples, combined with the unique symbols and calculation methods of Jin Yao, it will enable Mohist disciples to minimize casualties in future defense against enemies. Even these calculation methods not only apply to martial arts, but also benefit the most from the mechanism techniques of the Mohist school, because mechanism techniques involve the most calculations. I used to think that our Mo Bien branch would merge with the other two branches, become a vassal and lose control, but now. Xiangfu smiled happily. This calculation method must be mastered in the hands of the Mo Bien Imai. If the other two Mai want to learn, they must send those elite disciples to their Mo Bien Imai and become their disciples. And this calculation method will also inevitably become the core of the Mo debate lineage. Whoever dares to reach out will die. Do you really think that when you get old, you won't be able to draw a sword? Teacher, your smile is a bit scary. Jin Yao looked at Xiang Fuzi, who was giggling foolishly on the side and couldn't close his mouth. He felt a chill and spoke weakly. Cough cough, good disciple, from today on, you will be the master of my Mo Bien lineage. Xiang Fuzi stopped laughing, but the corner of his mouth still grinned into his ear, unable to hide his joy. Teacher, I'm only 12 years old. Jin Yao looked at his teacher speechlessly, wondering who could become the head of a family at the age of 12, not the king of any country, and still succeed to the throne at a young age. Isn't there a teacher here? These things need to be wiped away, and they can't be seen by outsiders, nor can they be taught to people outside of my ink debate. Xiang Fuzi waved his hand and a powerful internal force brushed over, peeling off a layer of bluestone. Really, leave nothing behind. Xiang Fuzi also thought very clearly. Who knows if anyone can restore the original form through the handwriting on the ground, so I even shaved 3 parts of the bluestone slab and played with anything that penetrated the wood. Let's go to the Jixia Academy to observe the ceremony. After completing everything, Master Xiang carefully checked and confirmed that there were no problems before leading Jin Yao's hand out of the secret realm. He also threw 2 mechanism beasts hidden outside the secret realm as a warning. Jin Yao looked at a mechanism beast in the shape of a local dog and a mechanism beast like a hummingbird, and admired it. These things were all sent by the Xianglizi lineage, as much as you want, they will all be yours in the future. Xiang Fuzi saw Jin Yao's envy and smiled as he drew a big cake. Jin Yao nodded decisively. Now that he has obtained it, it is useless. He has not learned mechanism skills, and even if he obtains it, he will not be able to use it. The Mabian Mountain Gate is not far from Jixia Academy, but Master Xiang still brought Jin Yao to a restaurant called Yujian Inn. I've seen the commander before, please come with me. As soon as I walked into the restaurant, a young man approached to greet me and curiously looked at Jin Yao. His gaze rested on the long sword in Jin Yao's hand, and he was slightly stunned before speaking again, young master, please come with the cook. Jin Yao looked at the young man with some surprise, then at Xiang Fuzi. This young man was actually a cook in his youth, with no trace of his middle-aged greasy and bloated appearance. Instead, he was very thin and small. Pao Ding, the protector and chef of the Mo Bien lineage, is also extremely skilled in using the technique of breaking the ox knife with one hand. Xiangfu Zi introduced. However, when the previous generation of Pao Ding passed away and he had not yet grown up, he opened this inn in Linzi, gathering information for our sect while practicing. I've seen my senior brother. Jin Yao also humbly bowed. The cook touched his head unnaturally, repeatedly saying that he dared not accept the gift from the young master. The Mohist school doesn't have that much etiquette, don't learn from Confucianism. Xiang Fuzi patted Jin Yao's head. The Mohist school doesn't talk about so much etiquette. When they meet, they just smile and say goodbye, clasping their fists. The Confucian scholar uniform that the commander requested to prepare is already ready. In the wing room of the backyard, the cook took out a green Confucian uniform and handed it to Jin Yao, understanding that the master asked him to prepare this set for Jin Yao. Jin Yao, however, was a bit puzzled by his intentions. He went to observe the ceremony, and why did he not wear the Mo styling clothes, but instead wear the Confucian clothing? There will definitely be a fight in the next few days, and I will go to support Sun Quan. I may not be able to care about you by then, so you should blend in with the Confucians, be low-key, and no one will come to you for trouble. Zhang Fuzi explained. Oh. Jin Yao finally understood, but he was also curious. Didn't he say he couldn't go before, and now he's going again? I don't know what cost Sun Fuzi paid to hire the teacher. When necessary, Sun Quan will take action to protect you once. Zhang Fuzi knew what Jin Yao was thinking and directly stated the benefits gained from this action. Jin Yao's heart trembled and he was somewhat moved. His enemies were the state of Wei, the king of Wei, and the ruler of Xinling. The teacher didn't say anything, but he prepared a way out for him. If he were to confront the state of Wei in the future, his life would be in danger, and the Confucian Sun Fuzi family would have to step forward to protect him. I know that there aren't many imitations of Ling Su in Mo Bian's hands, and there's no need to hide them. Many Confucian disciples hold counterfeit Ling Su, so you don't have to hide them. Seeing Jin Yao entangle Ling Su with a cloth, the cook spoke up and dispelled his thoughts. Can it still be like this? Jin Yao was somewhat surprised. Naturally, whether it is the blue blood pill heart or the humble heart, Ling Shu is very in line with the Confucian mind method, so young disciples also wanted to show off their extraordinary talents. Zhang Fuzi explained with a smile and added, the most important thing is that Ling Shu is very expensive. There are 18 North Sea blue blood pill hearts, each of which is priceless, and Confucian disciples happen to be not short of money. Jin Yao was even more admiring. He thought about traveling and having to earn all his expenses on his own. His master didn't give him a penny, which is also a requirement of the Mohist school's teachings. He must be diligent in everything, not work or eat a day. Pao Ding, take him to the Jixia Academy, I'll go directly to see Sun Quan. Zhang Fuzi explained and left alone. Jin Yao and Pao Ding can also understand that as the Prime Minister, when observing the ceremony at the Jixia Academy, they are naturally guests with a table. They don't necessarily have to, even many Confucian disciples have to stand outside the Analects Hall and listen, it's not easy for them to get in. There is an inn responsible for providing food for the Jixia school palace. There are many delicacies on the table for this grand event, so the young master can sneak in with me. The cook explained with a smile as he looked at Jin Yao, who was struggling with how to sneak into the debate platform of the Jixia school palace. Jin Yao breathed a sigh of relief. Before entering the Jixia Academy, he could see that the palace was crowded with scholars from various schools, with the largest number being Confucian scholars. Fortunately, the cook had arrangements, otherwise he didn't think he could squeeze in among these scholars. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Piao, Piao, and Piao, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Piao, Piao, and Piao, Seeking Collection and Recommendation, Little Master, this way. The cook called out softly, then looked at Jin Yao, who had a gate and insisted on climbing over the wall, speechless. Ha ha ha, habit, you haven't seen anything. Jin Yao awkwardly ran from the corner of the Jixia Academy to the side of the cook. May I ask boldly, what did the young master do before joining our sect? The cook really wants to know where Jin Yao learned this skilled wall climbing skill. That's not important. Jin Yao rubbed his head and realized that the Confucian etiquette had tied up his messy hair, which he was not used to. Jixia Academy hasn't been so lively for a long time. The cook watched as people came and went. The academy, where scholars were rampant, handed a 3-layer food box to Jin Yao and led him towards the debate hall. Didn't there be so many people before? Jin Yao was a little curious. He had been in Linzi for many years, but he had also come to the school palace once and was then kicked out, unable to enter. No, since the monarch reached an agreement with other countries and Qi no longer participated in the struggle for hegemony, the scholars of the 100 schools scattered to the Shihe school and the Daqin school, and the Jixia school no longer displayed its majestic appearance. The cook sighed. Although he had never seen the prosperous appearance of the school, he had been operating in Linzi for many years and naturally heard of the former Jixia from the diners. Deng Tuzi, stand still for me. Just as Jin Yao and Pao Ding were about to enter the main hall of the school, a clear voice like a oriole came from behind. Jin Yao and Pao Ding turned their heads at the sound, wanting to eat melons and watch the excitement. Senior brother, you go first. Jin Yao turned his head and his face changed greatly. He handed the food box to the cook and ran away. Shameless thief, stop me. A girl in a yellow shirt looked at Jin Yao's fleeing figure and immediately chased after him. It's still better to be young. The old scholars around looked at the two little ones chasing each other and smiled, adding some adjustment to the school palace that was being purged today. Han Tan and Gong Sun Long, please don't disturb the fun of the younger generation. Zhang Fuzi, dressed in black and white, stopped two contemporary famous debaters with a smile, but his heart was shocked. How did this disciple seduce a noble lady from a famous family? Well, it has the style of the old man. I need to help, and we can't let these two from famous families interfere. Gong Sun Long and Han Tan originally intended to help their daughter, niece, stop the Confucian scholar, but upon hearing Zhang Fuzi's words, they had to stop and salute. I've seen the teacher, Zhang Fuzi. Han Tan and Gong Sun Long were shocked. Didn't they say that the Mo family and Mo Bien had all died in the Yan Qi War long ago? Why is this guy still alive? When Zhang Fuzi became famous, they were all young and had met Zhang Fuzi with their father. Han Tan also learned martial arts from Zhang Fuzi for a period of time, which is why he called him teacher. Who is that? Zhang Fuzi pretended not to know Jin Yao and asked as he looked at the girl in the yellow shirt. Teacher, it's my niece, the legitimate descendant of a famous family, Ling Long, Gong Sun. Han Tan said. Zhang Fuzi nodded. Jin Yao has a special identity. If he were to marry a famous family, he would be able to attract them. At that time, Wei Kingdom would not dare to act recklessly. He just doesn't know how this kid will provoke other girls. Girl, it's useless. If you don't like it, you just don't like it. Forceful effort doesn't make you sweet. Although it can quench your thirst, we're not suitable. Jin Yao shouted as he ran. Deng Tuzi, stop and talk nonsense to me. Gong Sun Linglong was furious, but he couldn't catch up with Jin Yao. Moreover, there were too many hundred scholars from the Jixia Academy today, all of whom stopped and looked at him playfully. He stopped chasing for a while, blushing and shouting something. What kind of twisted melon quenches thirst, but it's not sweet, who wants to chase after him? My dear, it's so lucky that it caught the pursuit of Gong Sun Linglong, one of the famous twin girls. Han Fei looked at Jin Yao running towards him from afar and reached out a hand to grab him. Don't mess with me, you'll die. Jin Yao wanted to break free from Han Fei's hand, but only then did he realize that Han Fei actually knew martial arts. Han Fei looked at Jin Yao playfully. He had already recognized Jin Yao and could easily understand why he was wearing Confucian clothing. However, it was not a big deal to watch the excitement. Isn't the lively atmosphere of Mohist and famous schools fragrant? One invincible force, one invincible mouthpiece cannon, two invincible collisions, how sweet this melon is. You run, why don't you run? Han Fei stopped him and Gong Sun Linglong caught up with Jin Yao, grabbing his back collar. This girl, men and women are not compatible. Besides, you took the initiative to invite prostitutes back then. Jin Yao turned around and avoided Gong Sun Linglong's hand. All the onlookers were stunned, looking at Jin Yao and Gong Sun Linglong. This melon is so big. Gongsun Linglong took the initiative to invite prostitutes. Han Fei was also stunned. Nowadays, girls are so proactive, and they are also pretty. Why didn't they send them to their doorstep for free? No, it's paying. What are you talking nonsense? You were the ones selling ladles on the street back then. Gongsun Linglong scolded with a red face. Grasping grass, young people nowadays have such wild paths, one actively sells and the other actively buys. The scholars in the academy were all shocked and looked at the two of them. Zhang Fuzi also blinked. This disciple is so wild, selling prostitution on the roadside. Han Tan and Gong Sunlong were both speechless. They were on the scene at the time, talking about ladles for scooping water. It's different from what you think. At that time, they took Gongsun Linglong and Gongsun Liji out for a spring outing, and then met Jin Yao, who was selling ladles in a tavern and inn. The scene was like this. Little brother, how much does it cost to scoop you up? Gongsun Linglong asked. Give me a bowl of 12 coins, Jin Yao replied. Do you leak much water, Ladybug asked Gongsun Linglong. Piao, I'm leaking water for free, Jin Yao replied. And then? Zhang Fuzi was also shocked. In this conversation, at a different time, both sides switched genders, and the meaning of switching to brothels and brothels was very different. And then, that kid is actually a gentleman on the beam. Selling ladles during the day is fake, with the purpose of stomping on the ground. Han Tan sighed, referring to them in the sewer when the boat capsized. I never expected that I would be trampled on by a thief on my head without any defense, so Jin Yaoya broke into Gongsun Linglong's room and stole his money. Zhang Fuzi blushed a bit. Jin Yao was capable of doing this, and with a delicate and harmless face, both Han Tan and Gong Sunlong from the old martial arts world were caught. To be honest, the girl took the initiative to give it, not me. Jin Yao explained forcefully. At that time, he was robbed of all his money and had to borrow some money to spend it. Who knew he would step on the heads of famous families? He remembered when he sneaked into Gongsun Linglong's room, he didn't expect Gongsun Linglong to be taking a shower. Then, he glanced at her a few more times and smoothly twisted his daytime words. Then it was exposed, almost torn alive by Gong Sunlong and Han Tan, although for some reason they didn't pursue themselves deeply in the end. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The Strength of Famous Masters, Seeking Collection * Seeking Recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The Strength of Famous Masters. Seeking Collections and Recommendations. Gong Sun Linglong trembled with anger, pointing her jade finger at Jin Yao, unable to speak. When her father and uncle first discovered Jin Yao, she could only say that Jin Yao was here to steal things, and she couldn't tell her father and uncle that she had been watched by the other party. That's why Gong Sunlong and Han Tan thought they were giving Gong Sunlinglong some experience in the martial arts world and didn't pursue Jin Yao to the death. Jin Yao looked at Gong Sun Linglong in front of him, with bright eyes and charming eyes, bright teeth that were fresh and well proportioned. Most importantly, they were very white, big, and moist. As seen with one's own eyes, it's hard to equate with the graceful and plump. How can a girl say she's fat? Gongsun Auntie that Sanshao only sees. Yan, Zhao, Zhongshan, and Qi all have the title of twin masters, referring to Gongsun Liji and Gongsun Linglong. I really don't know how Gongsun Linglong became like that later. Fatty people are all potential stocks. Jin Yao thought for a moment and believed this sentence. Little brother, you're amazing. Han Fei gave a thumbs up after Jin Yao lost, only hating why it wasn't him. Linglong, no harm. Gongsun Long saw Jin Yaoyue's explanation becoming more and more chaotic. If he continued, Gongsun Linglong's reputation would really be ruined. He pulled Gongsun Linglong back and looked closely at Jin Yao. Not very old, 12 or 13 years old, but well matched with Linglong, with delicate facial features, and a Confucian scholar with good status. Zhang Fuzi arched the fire on the side and blinked as he looked at Jin Yao. This is a golden mountain. If you don't catch it yet, famous families are very powerful and influential. Han Tan looked at Jin Yao with some surprise. Back then, Jin Yao was just a furry boy, dirty and messy all over, with hair like a chicken coop, similar to a beggar. Now, when he changed into a Confucian costume, he held a replica of Ling Su in his hand, which looked very elegant and youthful. This Ling Shu. After Zhang Fuzi spoke, Gong Sun Long, as his father, also frowned and looked at Jin Yao. Then he looked at Ling Su in Jin Yao's hand, which resonated with his own Yan Bing. It's true. Gong Sunlong's eyes narrowed slightly. The famous swords could sense each other and resonate with Yan Bing, so this Ling Shu is not a fake. Let's go. Gong Sun Long turned around and led Gong Sun Ling Long and Han Tan into the main hall of the Analects with Zhang Fuzi. Father. Gong Sun Ling Long wanted to say more, but was stopped by Gong Sun Long. How did Ling Shu reach the hands of Confucian disciples? Gong Sun Long, walking side by side, suddenly spoke up. Zhang Fuzi smiled slightly and knew that Ling Su was not in the hands of Mo Bian, and Gong Sun Long was one of the few people. Does wearing Confucian clothing necessarily mean being a Confucian? I see. Gong Sun Long paused without further questioning, and he could understand the current situation of the Mo Bian lineage. Mo Bian Maiju. Han Tan also understood and turned around to give Jin Yao a meaningful look. I don't know what to call my little brother yet. Han Fei and Li Si looked at Jin Yao. They didn't even have time to ask last time, only knowing his surname was Jin. Jin Yao, far away. Jin Yao still didn't understand what Han Tan's last glance meant, and then asked, who are the two people following the teacher? The one in the front is a contemporary leader of famous scholars, a sophistry debater of the Li Jianbai theory, and a general of Zhongshan state. The one behind is also one of the great debaters of famous scholars, Han Tan, the foreign minister of South Korea. Li Si acted as the commentator, introducing them in a systematic manner. What is Li Jianbai? Jin Yao was puzzled. He really didn't understand this thing, even how famous families ranked among the top 100. Mr. Gong Sun Long believed that a hard white stone cannot be seen with the eyes whether it is hard, but can only be seen as white. Touching it with hands cannot feel its white, only its hardness can be felt. Therefore, there are only white and hard stones in the world, and there is no hard white stone. This is the famous sophistry of leaving hard white dot. Li Si continued to explain. Among them, the white horse theory targeting me as a Confucian debater has left me unable to solve it yet. Han Fei said with a smile. Bai Ma said. Jin Yao understood, but he didn't know anything else. However, Bai Ma said he was too famous and had an argument with Confucianism. He then used Confucius, Chu man loses his horse, to criticize Confucianism, becoming a non-human being. Chu people feel offended. I just couldn't believe that I could see these famous historical scholars with my own eyes. Actually, no ambitious man can refuse a noble woman. Han Fei looked at Jin Yao with envy. Why? Jin Yao couldn't understand. Because of the ability of famous figures, they can turn the fear and admiration of great figures into a powerful aura, and assist those with strong aura to turn intangible aura into tangible achievements. Therefore, behind every great figure, there is a famous debater, not just using them to argue. Li Stone continued to serve as Baidu's explanation in a simple and understandable way. Famous scholars name all things, including the Yin-Yang school, the Five-Element school, and the Historian school. It is only after famous scholars name and distinguish all things that there are historians who study Yin-Yang, the Five-Element school, and record the past and present. Han Fei continued. Jin Yao was foolish. Although famous figures held a high position in history, he really didn't know or understand why they were so high. Now he understands that just naming all things is enough to make them the leaders of 100 families. Especially the invisible yin and yang, as well as the 5 elements, can be distinguished and named, indicating that famous scholars have actually peeled off the origin of all things and named them. The most crucial thing is that celebrities have power, and money. Han Fei said the key. As a scholar who is coveted by great figures, he naturally does not lack power. Moreover, famous scholars who enter the court are usually foreign ministers of various countries, bringing with them the treasures bestowed by the monarch to persuade various countries and reach certain agreements. It is normal for them to intercept them from the middle and be rewarded by the tasking king. Therefore, they will not be short of money. Listening to Han Fei and Li Si's explanation, Jin Yao's eyes lit up, and his gaze towards Gong's son Linglong was filled with fierceness. This is a safe golden mountain, even if it is truly Gong's son's aunt, she cannot let it go. I don't know how good my aunt is when I was young, but I mistook being slim for treasure. Compared to Gongsun Ginu, my identity is not inferior, I can still work hard. Han Fei urged, leaving behind an envious saliva. Why not myself? With the support of a famous family, then what he wanted to do was simple. Although he studied under Xuanzi, he was a reliable legalist, and there is also a school of famous scholars called Xingming, which is one of the core classics of famous scholars that he cannot even learn. So, if Jin Yao can handle Gong's son Linglong and make good friends with him, he may have the opportunity to take advantage of the famous scholar's punishment name to observe. I think she wants to kill me even more now. Jin Yao also regretted it. If he had known that he had already resorted to violence, why did he only remember to watch and not know how to take action? It was a mistake of billions. End of this chapter.